Some of my students are working towards the rock school exam syllabus courses, and as part of the debut acoustic guitar they need to identify some of the basic parts of the guitar as part of the exam. So I thought I'd just run through some of those for you. The main three parts of the guitar are, probably helps if we look at it this way, are the head, or often called the headstock, the neck, which goes between the head and the body of the guitar. So obviously if you imagine it vertically, head, neck and body. There's a lot of other bits on the guitar, there's not just those three parts, so I'm just going to start at one end, work my way down and hopefully cover all the bits that are important. To start with the headstock, up at this end, this basically is somewhere where the tuning pegs or the tuners sit. These are the little capstans, is what they actually are, that wind the strings and enable us to tune the guitar. This is a 6-string guitar, so there's 6 of those, one for each string. We turn these to put tension on the strings to make them sharper or flatter to get the guitar into tune. As we move down, the strings pass over something here called the nut. This is important. This is the lowest point on the guitar that we can make a note. So if we play an open string, we're basically playing the string against the nut there. We can't play a note any lower than that, so that's the bass, the lowest point that we can play at. It's important for another reason. It also gives us a distance between the strings. If you look at the nut on your guitar, there's little grooves in it that the strings sit in, and that dictates the spacing of the strings across the width of the neck. Also the depth of those little grooves will dictate the action of the guitar. That means how high the strings are from the neck. The higher the strings are, the more difficult the guitar will be physically to play. So you want the action to be reasonably low, but if it's too low you'll get the strings will be rattling against the frets on the neck, and it'll make a nasty sound, but don't get too much into that. But the action is an important thing on all guitars. So moving down from the nut down the neck runs down into the body of the guitar. Let's turn the guitar that way. On the front of the neck we've actually got another piece of wood which is called the fingerboard or fretboard. Normally that's made of a wood such as a rosewood or a maple, or there's other types of wood they can use, and that's where we actually put our fingers to play the notes. On the fretboard we've got the metal frets across the fretboard like that. What those do is produce the individual notes. They're carefully spaced, they're all accurately spaced for a reason, so that when you play a particular note, in this example an A, that fret is in the correct place to make the string the correct length from here to here to generate the A note. So we've got the frets sat on top of the fretboard, and that's sat on top of the neck. We can see little dots on the fretboard as well. These are called fret markings or just position markers. That's just visually to give you an indication of whereabouts your hand is on the neck, because sometimes if you haven't got those markers, which is commonly on classical guitars, often you don't tend to get those markers always, and it is possible to get lost and have to be sort of counting your way up to find out where you are on the fretboard. I quite often find that the fret markers are also repeated on the top side of the neck as well. I don't know if you can see that really clearly on the video, so that when I've got the guitar in a playing position I can look down and see the markers on the top of the neck without having to crane over and see them on the actual fretboard itself. We've got 1 dot going up until here where we've got 2 dots. The 2 dots are significant. That indicates the 12th fret on the guitar. That also means that's the octave on the guitar. So at the 12th fret, we're playing a note an octave above the open string. So that's a full octave, that's 8 notes or 12 semitones, which is why you've got the 2 dots there. One thing you can't see, running inside of the neck, there's a metal rod, that's called a truss rod. That's used to apply tension to the neck. As you might imagine, we've got these strings. When we tighten the strings, they're pulling and creating almost a bowing action. So if you imagine a bow and arrow, when you pull it back, the bow actually bends because of the tension on the bow when you're pulling back the elastic on the bow. Same effect with the strings. So the truss rod, I won't be able to show you on camera, but I'll be able to show you in person if you're one of my students that I see in person, or have a look on your own guitar. If you're looking up in that direction, you might be able to see what looks like a little bolt or an Allen key head. That'll make sure the neck stay is reasonably flat and straight, so that we don't have a bowed shape or even a convex or a concave shape that'll make the action either really high, or it'll make the strings buzz on the frets if it's not properly set up. That's the same on electric guitars as well. You'll find that on most guitars. You might not find it on the very cheap bargain basement guitars, but to be honest, I'd probably avoid those anyway. Moving on to the body of the guitar. This is a standard acoustic guitar shape. The thing with this guitar, it's called a round back guitar, this particular one. You will see the many guitars have got wooden back. This one's actually got a plastic back, and it obviously is called a round back for a reason. The back's round. Actually, myself, I prefer the tone, the sound of the full wooden flat back acoustic guitars, but this is more comfortable for me to play. So it's a bit of a compromise when I chose this guitar. Playability was something I wanted to be able to get the guitar nicely into my body, get my arm over nicely. I found I was a little bit obscured with some of the bigger flat back guitars. In a perfect world, again, sound recording in a studio or something like that, personally I prefer the other type, but the difference is not that huge for what I'm doing and the level that I'm playing at, so I'm quite happy to play this guitar from a comfort point of view. Down where the strings end, down here, this part's called the bridge. So if you look at it, you can almost imagine the strings are going over a bridge, and that sets the height of the strings down at this end of the guitar. This is where, if you're restringing the guitar, you put the strings in from this end. On my guitar, the strings actually slot in through the back of the bridge here, and you just pull them through. There's another way of doing this. Other designs of guitar, they have little pins in here that you pull the pin out, and then the string goes into there, and you put the pin back in, and that secures the string. There's no real benefit that I'm aware of either different method. They're just two different ways of doing it. So, how does an acoustic guitar, make it sound? So when you hit a string, the string's vibrating. If you imagine a rubber band stretched between two different points, if you held it out like that, and if you magically had a third hand and plucked it, then it would make some vibration, and that's a sound wave. Because the string is attached to the guitar, it's solidly attached to the guitar, it creates vibration in the body of the guitar. So you can actually feel it if you put your hand on the guitar. This thing is vibrating here. Now the vibration is amplified, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word to use it. It's amplified by the cavity in the guitar, so it's like it resonates, it echoes, if you will. Again, I don't know if that's really the word for it, but that's where the sound is generated, and this hole here is called the sound hole. If you listen, if you ever try doing this, if you play a note, if you were to actually listen to the sound hole, you can hear the sound clearly emanating from the sound hole. So the vibration from the string is picked up in the body of the guitar, and then it comes out of the sound hole. The size of the guitar, the size of the the cavity, the hollow in the guitar, the size of the sound hole, all those things will have an effect on the sound of the guitar, but the principle of it is the same. The vibrating string creates noise that comes out of the sound hole. Just a couple of other things to mention on this guitar really. There's a little button there on the bottom, and there's one there which I could use to attach a strap if I wanted to play the guitar standing up. So obviously if I'm stood up I can't rest the guitar on my knee, so I'll need some way of supporting it. They don't work particularly well on acoustic guitar, particularly this front strap button, because of the weight of the guitar. On acoustic guitar the neck is quite heavy relative to the body of the guitar, so what will happen is usually with a strap your guitar will end up going as soon as you take your hands off it. So you'll often see, if you see on videos or if you go and watch a band, someone stood up playing the acoustic guitar, they'll often attach a strap somewhere up here on the headstock behind the nut, obviously, so it's not interfering with the strings, so that when they take their hands off the guitar it stays in the right place for them rather than drooping down like that. This particular guitar, I've just talked about it being an acoustic guitar for the moment. This is actually an electro-acoustic guitar. You don't need to know that for the exam syllabus for the rock school stuff, but just out of interest, if anybody cares to understand what that means, is it's actually got, you can see, a little plug there where I can plug a cable in and plug that into an amplifier or a recording desk or something like that in order to record the sound of the guitar. How does it work? Well, basically inside of the bridge here somewhere, I haven't seen it, it's somewhere inside, there's a little device called a piezo pickup, and that picks up the vibration from the bridge, and that converts that into an electrical signal that it sends out of the socket there and into your amplifier. It doesn't sound as good as if you were to just use a microphone that's well set up and positioned. That'll always sound better, in my opinion and my experience. That's always sounded better. But the reason that I've chosen to go for that on my guitar is so if I want to really quick just do a basic recording, not to produce a song for commercial reasons or anything like that. If I just want to record a lesson or just get something down real quick, an idea, I can just plug that in straight into my computer or into whatever I'm recording into, a phone even these days. You can record straight onto that without needing to mess about with microphones and positioning. Unless you've got a decent microphone, you're not going to get the best sound anyway, so if you haven't got that, this will probably sound just as good to most people's ears. Some acoustic electric guitars that have the obviously electric function also have a little battery in them. One of my students has one that's got a little battery in it. Basically what that does is there's a preamp on the guitar that makes that pickup, that piezo pickup, a little bit more sensitive, and quite often you can adjust the bass and treble levels on that so that you've got a better signal coming out of the guitar to begin with. That's all electroacoustic stuff, but just as a basic acoustic guitar, forget about all those little things, the socket and the pickup. It's just the sound coming out of the hole there. I'll do another video on the electric guitar, and I'll have a look at what are the similarities between an acoustic guitar and an electric guitar and what are the differences. This guitar, I've already said, can plug in, but even though this one can plug in, it works in a completely different way to a normal electric guitar like the ones you can see behind me there. So I'll cover that in another video.